2, 1. Hey everybody, thanks for watching our program. I have on the line with me a buddy of mine who goes back to my days of youth in the Midwest. Matt Tecu is on the line. Matt, thanks for taking time to sit down and talk with me. I haven't seen you forever. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's been a long, long time since the late 80s. So,
cool.
Yeah, great.
Matt is out in Los Angeles. I'm out here on the East Coast in DC. We haven't connected a long time. I follow Matt on social media. He's always got a lot going on that I find interesting, and I know people who watch this will find it interesting too. So Matt, first of all, how about we just address the elephant in the room with regard to the pandemic and the fact that, like many of us, we are figuring out new ways to stay busy and to stay working. And I was curious how things are going for you. I know you posted some things recently about wanting to stay busy in a remote capacity for other musicians. How's this kind of affected your sort of day-to-day? And we can certainly get into a little bit later about the stuff you're trying to do with your engineer and at your studio and things like that. But what's life been like for you in the last month, 6 weeks or whatever?
I'm losing my damn mind, Colin. I mean, keeping busy. I seem to go in 3-day cycles as far as emotionally. 2 days I'm like super grateful. It's going to be fun. It's kind of cozy in a way. I've been preparing for this my whole life because I feel, here's the thing. There's a part of me that kind of enjoys this in the sense, not that people are sick and dying, of course, but that people seem to be feeling the way I feel all the time naturally. I'm kind of socially awkward, kind of, I have this kind of anxiety that I live with. And so I kind of feel like, oh, now we're all in the same boat, and actually I'm kind of good with this emotionally, but financially and, health-wise, it's dangerous. I look at, speaking of social media, I look at Facebook or Instagram, and it has the feature of memories. Like, this is what you were doing this time last year. And it's interesting to see this time, would be the height of touring season for musicians traditionally. And you would be gearing up for a busy summer season right now. And so
Sure.
This time last year, I could see that, I was in DC this time last year. The year before I was in Texas this time last year. The year before that I was in New York. So it's kind of sad and daunting to look like, oh man, this is when we would be doing what we do, which is, for us touring musicians. So that's tough, but trying to find ways to stay busy, like you and I discussed before you turned this on, of getting into things that you've been putting off for a while. It's a good time for that, practicing things, building things, creating things. So I'm just trying to keep high spirits, and it's just weird to not have touched anybody in a month or 2 months.
I was thinking that too. It's very awkward that way. It's so weird.
Yeah. I'm a hugger. Colin, I'm a hugger.
Right on. Well, virtual hug. I mean, it's just the weirdest thing.
Yes, I know.
Hey, I was wondering, so have you been in, I assume the answer to this is yes, but have you been in touch off and on through the last couple of weeks with a lot of your colleagues or fellow players, musicians, people that are in your circle? Like, have you talked to them and found out, like, what are they up to? How are they managing? What's going on with some of the people you work with regularly?
Mostly through social media, though. But I have had some long conversations with some musicians, some old family members, some old friends. It is a good time for that, to call that one person that you've been wanting to call for a long time and just haven't got around to. So yeah, I'm doing that, and we're all in the same boat. I mean, some people are like, as far as musicians, we're all just finding ways to keep busy. Like, I just did an online concert with an artist that I used to work with, the singer Janova Magnus. And we did a live broadcast, but not live, because we were going to do it in this format, Zoom.
Sure.
Turns out Zoom there's syncing issues. So, and her band is spread out. The bass players in Florida, guitar players in New York, keyboard players in Lansing, Michigan. We're both here in LA. So to play live, it doesn't really work. So what I did is I went in the studio here, tracked 18 songs, videoed it, sent it to the bass player in Florida. He did it. And then so I just now, right before I clicked on with you, got the email of all the songs. I just haven't had time to look at it yet, but that's exciting. And that's a way to do. And I told her, I said, we got to make it look good and sound good. Because she's like, oh, I just want to do a kind of, lo-fi. And I said, but why? I mean, this may be the only concert we play all summer. You know what I mean? So
Sure.
let's do it as good as possible. I'm not saying make it too slick. I'm just saying make it real, make it sound like us, in a good
Sure.
way. So yeah. Anyway.
When did you kind of know or get the word that stuff was really like shutting down, like from not just from the perspective of like, well, a lot of things around town are closing down, but we're musicians and we got stuff to do in our studio and we can stay confined and ensconced in our little world and keep doing our thing. Like, when did you like sit there and go, oh shit, I'm going to be home. I got to go home.
Well, when I was getting the emails and calls and texts saying that thing we were going to do is canceled, that other thing we were going to do, and so I saw within the first couple weeks of this thing, and I'm talking going back like a couple months, that, well, I mean, I just lost $1,000. I just lost $2,000. Now I've lost $3,000 of stuff that was booked. So that's when I realized I got to scramble. And then also going to places like the grocery store and seeing like, oh, there's a line and there's a thing and they have gloves and masks and now it's official. It's a law. We all have to, of course, every state and city is different the way they're handling it. But people here in Los Angeles, in Southern California, are taking it pretty seriously for the most part. Having said that, I just came off the freeway and it seemed like there was traffic, not like normal, but people are out. But most people are doing the masks, the gloves, the whatever. So it seems like our climb of like death tolls and infection rates are kind of leveling off. I'm not saying they're going down, but they're because when it breaks out somewhere, it seems to do it really fast, like a wildfire. So yeah, that's when I noticed it. And I listened to scientists. It's too easy to get into. I'm really getting tired of my friends who knew. Like I look on social media and these conspiracy theories and all that, and I'm like, I'm not saying conspiracies don't exist, but this is not the time to get into like, I mean, you're stretching here. So what I do is I try to just listen to the people that have made this their life work, studying these things, not the politicians, not the this or that.
Sure.
I'll only listen to the politicians if that's where they're getting their information from. It's just like we have earthquakes here. When there's an earthquake, I go to Caltech Poly website, and where there are nerds that study earthquakes, that's all they do. So when there is one, I'm like, what do they have to say? And that's where I get my information. But, it's rough. I mean, I'm seeing some people don't have any options as far as side income or things. I mean, I got my stimulus check, but how far can that go?
Right. Hey, so to that end, let's talk a little bit about what I know you're doing with your engineer, Trent Slatton. I think it's Stag Studios, right? Let's talk a little bit about that. When did you and he decide to kind of mobilize and decide you can put yourselves out there as guys that can offer services while we're still in this sort of awkward lockdown state? How did that come about, and how do you see that playing out, like, indefinitely?
Well, we had kind of loosely been just aware of what each other's doing through social media. But this is a guy I haven't seen in 25 years. So when I first moved to LA, it was the 90s, so early 90s. So everybody was getting record deals. And I was in this band for a couple of years called Dig. We had like an MTV and K-Rock. We had mild success. We were on an MCA record. But that's back when major deals were almost forcing you to spend a lot of money. So we recorded at different studios, A&M for a couple songs, Ocean Way, and the engineer on that record was this guy, Trent Slatton. So big budget, great studios, great engineer, great team. And then that all went away. And so we connected. He said he's working at Stag Street Studios. Now, I worked there years ago. It's kind of one of those old studios. I think it was built in the 60s or 70s. got a vintage API board, great mics that rival any studio I've ever been to. And they're hurting. They got no bookings. Everything that they had, they were booked up, canceled. So they got nothing going on. Trent's been doing a lot of just personal work there and writing songs. And he got out of music for about 10 years doing real estate until he realized I fucking hate real estate. And so he's back into music, and so it has a relationship with Stag Street. So I was like, I'll come down and play on a couple of your songs for fun, or for, you know, a couple $100 or something, you know. And we did that, and then, well, so and so has a song, and then I posted something, and somebody said, well, I have a song, and so we started having people start sending tracks in. And we're right now working on a technology to where people can be part of the session in real time, meaning a producer songwriter in Paris could send us a song and he could get the tracks in real time. So he'd be like, oh, you know, that thing you did with your kick drum, yeah, don't do that here, do it more here. And, you know, so we don't have that set up, but we still can file share through emails and whatnot, and or Dropbox, WeTransfer, all those different formats of sending large files. You know, people send us the stems, the Pro Tools stems or the MP3s, and we just do what we do and send it back. That way we don't have to be in the same room with anybody else, don't even have to be in the same city. Although we are now talking about like having maybe another musician in an ISO booth and me over here. And so we're experimenting. You know, you want to go, it seems like things are loosening a little bit, the climate, as far as the restrictions, but you don't want to be stupid. You know, you don't want to be stupid or unsafe. But yeah, that's how this came about. And like I said, then we did an 18-song live video performance where I recorded the tracks, multi-track, good mics, through the board, Pro Tools, and videoed with my iPhone. And this is all new territory for us. Like, I've never had to video a session. Like, somebody wanted to, that's fine, but that's their job. I don't video. So we had to do that. And so now in a way we can, not only I can do drum tracks for anybody in the world, I can also join their band for like a live streaming performance.
Wow, that's cool.
So, I mean, not live, but so to speak, live.
Yeah,
like I video me playing to their songs or playing to whatever. They can send me tracks, and then I send that to them, and then they do the same thing, and then people can put together what you're seeing all the time now. These bands, like I saw Crowded House one the other day, where they were all in their own homes doing. It's like Hollywood Squares, all these different boxes of the band.
I've seen that stuff too, and they sound good.
Hey, some of them sound really good. Yeah. Really. I'm impressed. Yeah.
I've been seeing those, and actually, honestly, I've been wondering what technology is that's allowing them to do that. I'm jealous. I'm like, I'm separated from my band right now. I'd love to play with them, you know, remotely.
To a fault, I'm too low tech. I should know more about that stuff, but I know guys that do know about that stuff. So you know, I mean, I hit things.
There's a way to do it.
There are ways to do it, and I can find out with just a phone call away and let you know, but I don't offhand know. But anyway.
Cool. So here's one for you. Well, actually, two questions. One is, let's say Governor Newsom lifts all the restrictions and everybody's happy, and magically all of this social distancing goes away, or the vaccine is found, or whatever it is, and we can kind of get back to almost normal the way things were before. If that were the case, would you still be interested in doing the kind of remote work that you're doing with Trent now anyway, or
absolutely.
So much?
No, absolutely. I mean, I just love to work. And honestly, I mean, we're both drummers, but I can't say, since I was a young drummer where I was playing in my mom's basement in Missouri all the time, since then, I can't say I really love drumming. Meaning if you put the most beautiful drum set in the most beautiful room and said, you could play all day, I think I'd be good for about a half hour, 45 minutes, and then I'd get bored. But if you give me a project, I don't care if I'm stuck in traffic in my car. If I hear the turn signal, I start accompanying it. And that's what I am. I'm an accompanist. So I kind of get hired more for my ideas. And I love, like, if you put me in a studio with a project, whether the band's there or they're sending me raw tracks and it's just me and an engineer, me and Trent. I've been described as like a golden retriever with a frisbee. Like
Ah,
I'm tireless. I love that. But just
sure.
playing drums, I figured out once I start really getting into YouTube and watching that, I'm like, there's kids a third of my age doing things that not only can I not play, but I can't even imagine. And I know what it takes to get that good, which is doing like, oh, I'm going to work on my bass drum for 8 hours today. Like I don't want to do anything for 8 hours, like
Sure.
unless it's actual making stuff. So what I
Yeah.
like to do is make cool shit with cool people. So however we arrive at that, whether it be remotely, this is forcing us to do it remotely, but there's nothing like that musician hang, man. That's the best way when you can all hang.
That is the best, right? Isn't that kind of the whole point of playing music?
Yeah, that's really what I like to do for a living. Is the other night I watched my favorite thing to watch during this pandemic has been the Beastie Boys documentary that's on Apple TV now. I
Okay.
don't have Apple, but I wanted to see it so bad I just downloaded it on my iPad and watched it. It was so moving, and what I got out of it was it's three guys that are equally as creative that really stumbled into this career of being rock stars and rap stars, and like they were a punk band that weren't even a band. They just decided to be a band, and they didn't
Right.
know how to play, and it was just like move after move after move like that for years, where they would be up, they'd be down there, but they all had something to contribute. They loved hanging with each other, and they loved making cool shit, and they loved making each other laugh. And out of that, it changed history. I mean, those guys influenced everybody, if you think about it.
Sure.
They changed things. So, I mean, that's kind of it. I almost started crying because it was so moving, especially when Yaup died and they start talking about him. But it's like, yeah, that's why I do this. I do this because I like to hang out with people like you and make cool shit, and then hopefully get it to a point where there's enough interest where then we can go out on the road and do it, and then we can do it in like Copenhagen one night and Madrid the next night and DC the next, that kind of stuff. It's the best job in the world when it's the wheels are turning and it's happening.
Sure.
But it's also the life of a gambler. You got to have the stomach for, like, I've had people that I would consider better musicians than me. Like, how do you do this for a living? And it's like, well, you have to have the stomach for it, because like a gambler, you're up one night, you're down the next, and you just have to not do it for that. You have to do it because if you don't do it, you'll go crazy, and then you try to figure out a way to make a living with it. But I mean, I wouldn't say I'm successful. I've had successes. That's it. It's not, I'm not at a point where I could just be cool and like just retire. Like, no.
Sure. So question then to that point, I was curious about when you made the decision or the choice to move out to Los Angeles. I was wondering, like, what were your expectations of doing that, and did it meet those expectations when you were first there for however many initial years? And was it daunting? And did you ever think you need like a plan B, or like what was your mindset about moving out there, and how did it play out?
Well, when I moved out here, I was 25. So yeah, I had no problem. I was working at a bakery with Troy Van Leeuwen on Melrose, who's now the guitar player.
What?
Yeah. He got me my first job in LA. So it was a time when everybody was doing stuff and doing way too many drugs. So I'm lucky to have survived it. A lot of people didn't. But it was 91 when I moved out here, February 1st, 1991. And I moved out because, well, first I was playing a gig in Columbia, Missouri. And Red Cross came in, the band. And their drummer was Jack Irons, who used to play in the Chili Peppers.
Okay.
And Jack saw me play and was like, hey, the band really likes you. My band 11 is getting signed in LA, so I can't be with Red Cross. You should come out and audition for him. So I flew out and auditioned for him because my band, The Unconscious, was falling apart. We knew we were done. We were just kind of playing out whatever shows we had booked. I think our last show was a New Year's gig. And so I came out and I didn't get the gig, but it got me to I hooked up with some friends of mine here that once we did my final Unconscious show, I then packed up my car and drove out here. And the manager for the Unconscious, Chip Schloss, his younger brother, Xander Schloss, played with played guitar with Joe Strummer, played bass in Circle Jerks, and the Weirdos. And he's like, come out here. I have a band, the Two Free Stooges, which was like a total Hollywood invention. Las Vegas psychedelic punk rock was our thing. And so I came, so I had a gig. And then he quickly said, the drummer from the Weirdos, the legendary punk rock band, he quit to join the Cramps. Would you drum in the Weirdos? So I immediately had gigs. But what was weird was I came from St. Louis, where I was in one band and made a living, to coming out here and being in 4 or 5 bands and being broke. I'm like, how do you all do this? Like, because it's expensive to live out here and nobody's getting paid, you know?
Right.
I mean, a little bit here and there, but it was the Hollywood experience. And then the riots hit and all that. Was just a weird time. But yeah, Two Free Stooges was Xander on guitar, Dick Rude, Manny Chevrolet singing, Martijn Lenoble on bass, who would later be in Porno for Pyros. And the opening band was this punk rock cover band called Hate, which was Angelo Moore singing from Fishbone, Flea and John from the Chili Peppers on guitar and bass, and Nicky Beat from the Cramps on drums. So instantly I was in this scene, and then I'm playing punk shows, and I'm not really a punk rocker. I mean, I had my handful of records. I love The Clash, but that's not really punk rock, really. It's not, you know, I had a Black Flag record, but I didn't really play it much, you know. I wasn't that guy. But if you're a musician, you just adapt. So that's what I did. I was in that scene, and you just learn. But that's what got me out here, and that's what I first did anyway. I guess that was your question.
Sure. And that's going on 30 years now, or almost 30 years.
Yeah. I mean, the 90s, like I said, was rough for a lot of people. I ended up in this band Dig, which is how I met Trent, who we were talking about, the engineer.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was easily getting record contracts, and also just as easily getting dropped from those labels. So
sure,
it was a crazy time, and everybody had drug habits. I don't mean everybody, but you know what I mean? It was like
many people.
More normal than not.
Yeah.
And I'm a boy from Missouri. I mean, I like to drink beer and do shots of Jaeger, but that was pretty much the extent of it. Smoke weed or whatever. But then I got out here, and you can only say no. I'll speak for myself. I could only say no for so long. Then, yeah, I'll try that. And I'll try that. And then one day you realize you're the guy you swore you would never be. And so the 90s were rough. And then came out of it and did other things. But what are we at, 2020 now?
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That was almost 30 years ago. That, you know,
sure.
The 90s. But yeah, I don't know. The more I think about it from that way, I'm like, shit, been a lot of weird ups and downs and a lot of fun had. But anyway.
So how I'm curious about, you know, I enjoy your all your social media postings.
I mean, because I'm antisocial. So it's a way for me to be connected, and I'm too cheap to have a website. So it's, for me, it's basically all the truth. But what I don't post is Matt hates himself and doesn't want to get out of bed. And I assure you, I've had plenty of those mornings.
I'm sure.
I wait till
we all have.
Like, look how cool I am. Look how sexy I am. Look how rocking, you know, whatever. And it's all just manicured truth. But I mean, I'm very lucky and very grateful. But it's not the whole story, as we know.
That's what social media is about. It's like keeping up your appearance, right? That's you put out there what you want to put out there. You filter what you want to filter, and
I'm trying to advertise myself because nobody else will. And
sure.
Honestly, I'm not advertising myself to be rich or famous. I have no real urge. I mean, sure, I'd like to make more money. Who wouldn't? But I have no urge to be famous. I just want to be famous enough to work. That's all I want to do. And I know how this business works. If you do something with someone that people know, then they're like, oh, who's that guy? That's the drummer. And then, oh, well, then he could do this thing. And then you're in the flow. We all have had those moments in our life, no matter whether it be professionally, romantically, socially, whatever, where you're in the stream and you're going and you feel that energy. And then everybody knows that feeling of not being in the stream. You're going, hey, wait for me. Like, you know, so I've had both many times, but I post the stream on social media.
I think you've got it down. Like all those things you said are like 1000% true. And I echo your sentiment on all of them. There's certainly a love-hate relationship with social media that I think a lot of people have, and myself included. But
Yeah.
I think you've really got it down because you have this awesome balance of like interesting professional things and experiences and all this kind of stuff, but fun and cool and different personal things that are out there too. So it's a nice balance where I personally find it entertaining. So I look forward to your
I'm
show.
glad. Well, then you get the point then, because those friends of mine who find it annoying, I would also agree with them too and be like, no, I get it, dude. If you don't want to look at my shit, like I get it. I annoy myself sometimes. I know that I'm absurd and ridiculous. It's part of who I am, but
Aren't we all?
I guess, but some people try really hard to not be portrayed that way. Whereas I don't care. I'm like, I don't care. Just check it out. If you don't, people that have complained that it's too much, I'm like, just don't look. It's Facebook,
Just turn it off.
What's boring to me is somebody that has a Facebook profile and it's a picture of a wolf or something. I'm like, I don't know who you look like. How am I going to accept your friend request if I don't like?
Right.
It's Facebook. Show me your face. Like,
yeah. Good point. Good point.
Well, to me, I look at it as it started as my photo album, and I didn't know what it was. And then I used it to pick up girls or try. And I had a female roommate, and she's like, "Oh no, now you're that guy." And I'm like, "What guy?" She's like, "You're a collector. Like nobody likes that guy." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know. I thought it was a dating site. I didn't know what it was." When I first got turned on to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's absurd. But it reminds me of when I was really little. Music's always been so important to me. But I had no musician friends in my neighborhood where I was living. So I had no mentors. So what I did is I would hide in my room and listen to records. And it was a personal thing. And I would listen to the radio, FM radio. And I thought, what I want to do when I grow up is be an FM DJ. Put me in a small room with a bunch of records, and I play these records and talk about them. I'm going to play cool stuff and talk about why I think it's cool and turn people on to stuff. And so social media is kind of my way of like being a DJ. I broadcast like on my Instagram stories, I've been posting pictures of castles and putting a song to it. Like, it doesn't matter if it's Nick Cave or, Cyndi Lauper or Led Zeppelin, or it doesn't matter. I just find something that, and I noticed that I just went through this breakup after a 7-year relationship. So you're just walking around with a lot of pain, and I realized looking at pictures of castles makes me happy. So I just went with it. Now I'm a castle DJ. I post pictures of castles and I put songs to them. Why? No reason.
No reason. There doesn't have to be a reason.
Right.
So
anyway,
from a professional perspective, again, let's put out of our mind for a second that we're all in this awkward, quarantining, social distancing.
Survival mode, yeah.
Right. Forget about all that stuff right now. If life were back to normal, again, whatever normal is, how busy do you typically like to be? Like, do you like to be working as much as you possibly can, or how do you balance life?
I personally do. If it's music, I mean, I've never found a more exhausting job when you're really doing it a lot, like long days in the studio or long tours. It's exhausting, but what I like about it is I was always kind of an anxious kid, shy, awkward, which I don't think that's uncommon, but music is the thing that reminds me, this is who you are, dude. Like, this is what you're doing. This, you know what I mean? Like, I like being on tour because I know when do I wake up? Well, it says right here when I wake up on the sheet, on the itinerary, and then where are we playing tonight? Oh, it's right here, and this is where we're staying, and this is who's giving us our dinner, and this, I love the life. So, I mean, typically a good year for me, like last year, I would say it was a good year, not the best year, but not the worst. It was about 100 or so shows around the country, around the world, and about 50 something recording sessions. So that's about 150 years or more work days. And then, as you know, all the prep days that lead up to that. If you're doing a session, you might be rehearsing and learning songs for days, or you're going on tour, you might have to, a week of rehearsals before you do that. And so if you add the prep days together, yeah, it's about 2 days work, a day off, that kind of life. I like that rhythm. But yeah.
I gotcha. Okay. Any stuff that you, again, this is in the imaginary world of the pandemic hadn't happened and all that stuff, but any stuff that you thought that you would be working on, or might still, but thought you were going to be working on throughout this year, or any projects or artists that you have been talking about working with that are kind of on the plate or might still be at some future point if things kind of relax?
Or canceled? Or are you talking about stuff that like I would have been doing that?
Yeah,
that
stuff that you would have been doing, stuff that might have been on your books that got canceled.
Well, when this came, I was booked to do a couple shows I did this movie and album, this documentary Echo in the Canyon that came out last year. Although we had been working on it for years. Was starring Jacob Dylan and then all these other celebrities. You got Nora Jones, Fiona Apple, Beck, and then the legends that originally made this music that we're paying tribute to, the Roger McGuinns, the Stephen Stills, the Neil Youngs, and all that. So that came out, and we were doing promos across the country all last summer, and like playing movie theaters. So they'd show the movie, we'd play, and then they'd do a Q&A with the director.
Okay, cool.
And so it was odd to play movie theaters around the country.
I bet.
Yeah. Side note, movie theaters have the deadest sound. Even though they're big cavernous rooms, you play in them and it's like as dead as...
Probably all the curtains and stuff, right?
Yeah, they design it that way. Because what you want to hear is the speakers. Sure. Except for the old movie houses, which are old theaters, and those were designed for the opposite, to project, Mm-hmm. But anyway, we had a couple shows booked there. One of them was a real note. We were supposed to perform with Bill Clinton. It was a World Health Summit thing.
Wow.
He was going to speak, and then we were going to perform after. And then we had a couple private, big money, functions that we were going to play, all canceled. A couple albums that I was supposed to do, canceled. Although now I'm trying to find ways to start it back up again with the new situation I have with Trent.
Sure.
But yeah, normally I would be out on the road. Sam Morrow, this young singer-songwriter, Americana, outlaw country, whatever you want to call that music, which is just basically country-based, but you throw in any ingredient in there. Like we call our Rolling Stone call our music funky tonk. It's because it's like it's kind of like Little Feat. It's kind of funky. It's kind of you got slide guitar in there, and it's.
I think I checked out one of his songs that you might have posted. I checked out the video, which I thought was pretty entertaining, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of like the band, up on Cripple Creek, kind of funky style.
Yeah, it is. It's like that. It's funky tonk, but I really liked it. And he's got a really kind of gnarly, smoky, rootsy voice that I loved.
Yeah, he's real. He's a real, I've known Sam for quite a few years now, and he's only 29 now. So I've known him since he was a kid. He's originally from Dallas. But he's a bad motherfucker. And we just finished his record, but he's held back on releasing it. Normally we'd be out on the road promoting it, and it would be being released now, but everybody stopped what they were doing, because there's things you can't do that you would normally be doing, but then there's also things you don't want to try to do yet till we know what this is. So he's going to start releasing his record, and he's now decided with his management and label to release a song at a time before he releases the album.
Okay.
So basically, and then maybe we can do online video performances to kind of promote it. And so everybody's kind of feeling out what can we do to keep the business rolling and keep plans going, but we have to tweak it all because of what's going on here, But yeah, that album's coming out soon, the new Sam Morrow record, and we finished that months ago. It's just didn't know what to do with it. And like I said, you only get one first impression, so you don't want to release it and have it die. So, and first impressions on a new artist, young artist, it's everything.
You got to be careful, right? You got to kind of really think about that, or what's the strategy?
You got to have everything in a row, and then you release it, and and I've learned a lot of that from working with people that really know how to do that well.
Yeah.
I mean, most times I'm just hired to be the drummer. I'm the guy behind them, and I don't have any say in how they do their business, but I see how they do it. And so I've learned that, yeah, timing in entertainment can be everything of how it's released, when it's released, what else is being released that week or that month. And, you know, is it competition? Can you piggyback on it? It's so much strategy involved in the business of music beyond just the making of music. So,
yeah. Any particular memory that you can share about your experience with Echo in the Canyon that folks who saw the movie wouldn't see or have known about it otherwise? Like anything sort of a behind the scenes moment that you remember fondly?
well, I mean, yeah, there's many of them. First of all, we recorded them in some of the greatest old studios that originally it's a tribute to late 60s folk rock that then inspired the Beatles, who then inspired Brian Wilson, and et cetera, et
Back and
cetera.
forth. Yeah.
Hence the Echo.
Producer wars.
Yeah. But so some of these studios in Hollywood are still around, or in LA. And so to go to those studios and recreate some of this, like to be in Capitol Studios, they have 3 main rooms. So we were in Studio B, and we're playing the Beach Boys song in my room, and in walks Brian Wilson, who sits down at the piano and starts playing the song with us. And then he stops and he's saying, Brian Wilson is I don't know if you've ever seen an interview with him, but he's very fragile. I mean, a musical genius, absolutely.
Sure.
But he's a very fragile
guy.
Yeah, almost like a child.
Mm.
And he stops and says, yeah, me and my dad and my brothers recorded the song here like 50 something years ago. And we were like, yeah, we know. Like, that's why we're here. Like, okay. Like, he wasn't even aware of like any of that. He was just kind of in the moment, just playing the song.
Wow.
And pointed out that we were playing it in the wrong key. And we're like, all right, you know. But
Oh, goodness.
another story was we did this concert. Well, no, that'd be revealing too. But I don't want to say any stories that put somebody in.
Okay, no spoilers.
Well, I don't want to insult anybody. You know what I mean? Because everybody survived their hard lives, and far be it for me to go online and tell some story that's going to embarrass them. You know, but
Fair enough.
We did do the movie premiere here at the Cinerama Dome in Hollywood, which is this dome movie theater that was actually built to premiere Kubrick's 2001. He made the movie because he wanted to premiere it in this geodesic space dome of a theater. Well, we built a stage and we did a week of performances after screenings of the movie, and that's how we premiered it. And we did these performances with some of the original 60s guys. So, for instance, Roger McGuinn comes in and from the Byrds, and he is totally together. Like, he literally just plugged in, turned around, said 1, 2, 3, counted off, and we were in. And we were doing
Wow.
Byrds. And we're doing Bird songs, and then we do a Beatles song that inspired the Byrds song. And so I'm playing a Beatles song. I'm basically playing Ringo's drum part, and I look out in the audience, and there's Ringo, like looking at me playing his part. Yeah, and Ringo came to the premiere.
Oh, that's cool.
And another thing was Stephen Stills was the opposite of Roger McGuinn. Like, he's half deaf, he's damaged, he's great. I mean, there was no greater genius in the 60s than Stephen Stills. Buffalo Springfield, Crosby, Stills, and Nash, his solo stuff. I mean, Stephen Stills is the shit. Then one of the most unique guitar players of the time. But now he's just a crazy old man. So, and he's deaf. So he turned up so loud, and then would do things like change the key in the middle of the song, and you're like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, so we had to survive Stephen Stills that night.
Surviving Stephen Stills.
Yeah, at the end you high five and you're like, we survived Stephen Stills.
Of course.
And how cool
that's
was that?
Cool. I'm sure that's of course that's the kind of stuff you remember. Like, that sticks with you.
Yeah, and then those was the little pinch me moments of when you're like, I can't believe I'm up here playing with Steven Stills. Like, that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, because they're inventors. He can go up there and chowder the whole song. It doesn't matter to me because he invented it. The only reason we're here is because of guys like him. You know,
Sure.
we're pioneers. You know, I got to record on the album a song with Neil Young, so I have a recorded song with Neil Young. Never met the man. But that was like, they brought him in after to play guitar on it, and thank God he did, because now I have this song that's like, that's me and that's Neil Young, but still haven't met the man. So
Wow. Who's on your I would like to work with list? Like who's an artist that you think you would really enjoy collaborating with and get a kick out of?
yeah, to me that's an interesting question, because it's easy as a child to be like, I want to work with them because they're famous and great, and I'm a big fan. But that's different than like, now I would look at it differently as like, I'm a professional. I know my limitations. I know that, like, I got called to do a gig, and it was good money. This was a couple months ago, right before this pandemic stuff, and it was a band like Evanescence.
Oh,
And
okay.
I said, I can tell it's good. I know enough about music. They can tell that she's very talented singer, and the band is good. I'm not the right pick for it. I'm telling you.
Sure.
I'm not.
Sometimes you gotta separate yourself. Sometimes.
I just knew I wouldn't be happy doing it. I would be trying to fool them. I'd be woodshedding at home, and I'm a professional. I can learn it and do it. But I know that there's kids that do that. They're half my age. Yeah. They'd be great at it. That's their style of the double bass and, you know, all that.
Just let them do that. Just let them do that.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, I was cool to be like, I'd rather be honest with you and say that there's better guys out there for this than me. But, you know, like, my job as a kid was, or my goal as a kid was to be the best drummer I could be. I think that's a great goal for any youngster doing whatever they're doing, to be the best and to sound the best, which ends up me playing flashier shit than I need to because I just learned it that week. It's all ego driven. Right. And I'm playing louder than I need to because that's ego driven. And I'm insecure of like, just look at me. And I know it when I see players like that. Now my goal is to make the people around me sound as good as they can do, because I'm an accompanist. So if I can make the singer sound really good by what I'm playing, I'm the only guy not playing notes in the band. So I'm playing textures. I look at it as like a song is like a scene in a movie. Now, is this a love scene? Do you want smoke and blue lights, or is this a action adventure scene? Do you need explosions and, you know, flames? So I'm the guy who kind of provides the attitude for what they're doing. So that being said, the guys I'm thinking of, guys I want to work with are guys that I can hear myself doing what they're doing. Like, oh, I hear what you're doing. I totally dig it. And I think I have something to bring to the party. I mean, ultimately it's up to them because I'm a hired guy. So I don't get to decide who hires me. Sure. That would be great. But, you know, I was talking recently to the singer-songwriter Ryan Adams because I would really like to work with him. I know very little about him personally. I've just really enjoyed his records, and he writes great songs. Yeah. And I can see that he grew up with the same records I did. Like, oh, he grew up with Black Sabbath, Black Flag, and Grateful Dead. I'm like, me too. So I have that in my arsenal of vocabulary. You know, every musician has a vocabulary. So I'm like, I think my drum vocabulary could work with his songwriting vocabulary. But then this happened, and so we'll see what happens. But I'm just saying that, to answer your question, it's where could I see myself doing what I do with them and making them sound better. It's not about like, you know, wanting to be on the biggest stage with the biggest paycheck. That's great. I'll whore myself out for a time, but really, I'm old enough now to know that that's not really fulfilling. The fulfilling part is when you're working with someone, you're like, wow. I always thought it doesn't matter if you're working in an ice cream shop. To keep a job as you you get the job, and then you make it so where they couldn't do it without you. You do things in such a way where you're valuable to them. You know, the way you do it is like, you can't just find somebody to do that, you know, and so to find that unique relationship with a situation or a band or an artist that I'm working with, that's what I'm about.
Sure. And that's I mean, that's why you are selected. Like, why there's a million drummers out there, and in my case too, I mean, to echo your
There's
point,
kids that can do things with their right foot that I can't even do with my hands, and I'm like,
I see that all the time. I see it all the time on YouTube. I see it everywhere. I'm always impressed by.
but a lot of those kids don't know how to make a song sound good, and a lot
There
of
you
those
go.
kids you will never hear on a record. Although I will look at their YouTube videos and be like, it's so impressive to me. It's like watching an amazing athlete or an amazing magician. I'm like, how did he do that?
Sure.
And I
You know
will
what
and I will like steal little bits of their vocabulary, but them themselves, you won't see them working because they have to do that. Like, it's crazy. Who wants that on their song?
Give me some Charlie Watts. Like, what happened to Boom Tap Boom Tap?
And well, I often get into the debate if I go into these drum forums and people start a hating on Ringo thing. That's when I get irate, because I think Ringo was one of the most important drummers in the history of. I mean, the instrument was only invented in the 20s, the drum set.
Right.
And Ludwig never sold more kits than after the Beatles played the Ed Sullivan Show. And if you've made records and you listen to what it takes to make a record and a drum part sound good, Ringo's a master, because it's strategy. I'm not saying he's a master press roll or double stroke this or that. Like, no. He came up with parts. He composed parts that was 1/4 of the sound of this band that changed the world. I mean, who else changed them more? Nobody, you know? So I love guys like Ringo and Levon Helm, Charlie Watts. These guys are vibe guys, or any of the Stax Motown guys, vibe guys, like incredible. Like,
How about Jim Keltner?
Jim Kellner, well, he gets it because he serves the song, and he will do that little something extra, like a little egg shaker, just in the right place in the mix, and it makes the whole track. All of a sudden, the track is spooky, and it's like there's no mystery in what he was doing technically. Like, you could do it, I could do it.
Just the way he does it, though.
It's the way he does it, and it's so it's very personal. It's the Jim Keltner sound. The way he does it, the way he sets it up, the way he tunes it, the way he puts himself in the song, the way he gets, like Miles Davis, when to step up, you know, when to duck and get out of the way, and when to step in and clean up. You know, those guys, it's timing. And so, yeah, Jim Keltner, I think it's well-deserved. You know, when I was doing Echo in the Canyon, the drummer on a lot of that stuff was the Hal Blaine from the Wrecking Crew.
Oh, sure.
So, you know, Jim Keltner was the next generation from the Hal Blaines.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, those guys are studio masters. They know how to make songs sound good. It's not about technical this and that. You know, like, we all love Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich was from another planet. He did things that were like incredible, and his praise is well deserved. But how often do you listen to Buddy Rich songs at home?
There can only be a few Buddy Riches in the world too. Like, there can only be, you know,
kind of annoying after a while. To watch him play solos, I get it, man.
Sure.
I had a drum teacher that was a friend of his, and would say, if you want to know technically, physically how to position your body, just watch Buddy Rich. The way he sat, the way he set his stuff up, and he set it for comfort. He wasn't putting things up high to like for show. He was just, and so I get it, but do I really? I listen to the Beatles a lot more than I listen to Buddy Rich. Is all I'm saying.
Sure. Hey, do you typically bring gear of your own to sessions, or do you typically use stuff that's at a particular studio, or a mix of both? Or
I'm lazy, so if there's something that's good, I'd rather do that. You know, I'd rather not bring stuff humping it around. I used to be a lot more energetic about that stuff. I like to, if I say I'm doing an album, so you're in the studio for 2 or 3 days, or however long it takes to do the drums or the basic tracks. You might get the whole band, you might just get the drums and bass. Who knows? But I know that it's my turn, so I will bring up all the cymbals I have and bring 3, 4, 5 different snare drums just in case. And then whatever the studio has, oftentimes they have stuff better than what I have. So we mix and match. What I like to do if I'm doing a whole album is there's certain albums I like because each song has a different production and sound. Like there's these Los Lobos records that I like, Kiko and Colossal Head.
Kiko,
and those are,
love it.
yeah, and that's Mitchell Froome and Chad Blake that engineered and produced those.
Okay.
Now, the way they did it, each song has a totally different drum sound. And the drummer on that was Pete Thomas from Elvis Costello, who's another Jim Keltner in LA. He's a LA session guy, Pete Thomas. And when you work with Elvis Costello, you learn all different styles. You got to swing, you got to play reggae, you got to play new wave, you got to rock, country. So I like those albums because every song has a personality. So when I do, say, for instance, a Sam Morrow record, I'll lay out 8 snare drums and he'll play me the idea. A lot of times these songs aren't even finished. He'll just strum, this is the idea of the song. And I start to, I think that I get tired enough for my drumming. There's way better drummers than me, but nobody thinks like me. I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying when it fits, it fits. So I will think, okay, that should have a big, fat, wet, puffy Mick Fleetwood 70s snare sound, like a wood with a towel on it. Or that should have a tight, cracky James Brown, metal snare sound. And so each song has a different personality that I'm helping provide from how I hear their idea. And so, yeah, I'll bring varieties, but there's no faster way to change the whole sound of a kit than changing the snare. Change the snare out, and all of a sudden the whole kit sounds different, even though it's the same. Also, changing the ride is another way to do it, or change the kick drum out. But again, I'm lazy. I'd rather not. But a couple of Sam records ago, they had this 28-inch marching, one of those vintage marching bass drums. I don't know how to play that thing. One of those that has a painted front head. The action on it, it's too boingy. But what we did is we put a wool beater, and I just barely touched it and did a thing with the brushes, and it was real vibey. So I'm into the vibey stuff. I'm not like a super gear guy. Like I've done things where behind the studio in the alley, there's a dumpster, and I kicked the dumpster because I used to smoke out in the alley. I used to smoke cigarettes. I was like, we should put a mic in that dumpster. And we did. And that was the bass drum for that song.
Wow.
So I'm all about, because you listen to albums like Tom Waits and stuff, and you're like, that's a killer drums sound, but what the fuck is that? It's some creation. I'll put a bongo on top of the snare drum, hit it with a brush, and then a hot rod in the right hand, hitting the floor tom with a towel on it, with a tambourine on it, and just play a drum part, but play it with these little, the drums were originally called the trap set because it was short for contraption. And in the 20s, the drum set is like, we put a marching bass drum here, marching snare here, Turkish cymbals up here, Chinese tom-toms, some wood blocks, a kazoo, so that way the drummer can
the kitchen sink.
Yeah, anything. And then vaudeville came, and so you're accompanying strippers. You got to swing for the strippers so they take their clothes off. Then you got comedians. You got to do the rim shots, and then you got skits. So you got to be the sound effects guy. Someone knocks on the door, someone falls down the stairs, so I still believe in that thing of like, don't get too hung up on the YouTube gospel chops, drummy, crazy Vinnie Colaiuta stuff.
Yep.
Vinnie Colaiuta is a master. Like, to me, there's no greater. But I personally like to be the guy that brings these cool, weird textures to make your song sound good. And I don't care how dumb your song is. If it's 2 chords or 1 chord, it's fine by me. I want to come up with something cool to make it not sound like everything else. And that's when I'm a golden retriever with a Frisbee,
Love that. I love that approach. So to that end, and we're getting toward our wind down time here, but to that end, in terms of all those things that you talked about that you bring and approach songs and song ideas with, and how to be an accompanist and serve the song and all those kinds of things, help us remind us how we can get in touch with you, if somebody wants to work with you in the remote capacity that you're doing now with Trent, with your engineer Trent,
Yeah.
and whomever else, what do you tell people? Like, how do we reach you? Is like, are you putting it out there
Oh,
on social media? And
I can give my email, which is mtecu at hotmail.com. M is in Matt, and my last name, Tecu, mtecu at hotmail.com. You can email me, or you can find me on Facebook or Instagram and private message me. I mean, I'm not that guarded.
cool.
I'm not.
I say that only because I really want to, again, amplify and push the fact that you've put yourself out there as available to do this kind of work, at least in this.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, this is
setting.
a new business. And thank you, Colin, for helping me promote it, because I play drums for a living, but this is a new thing. Trent and I we want to keep doing it. So yeah, by all means, we're looking for new clients, and thank you for helping promote it, because it's exciting for us to be able to do this in contrast to what's going on in the world, which is who knows where we're going to end up, and who knows when. I've heard live shows, we may get back to normal, meaning people go to work and they're in traffic, but
Right.
as far as people being mashed together like in a concert or a club or an arena thing, like I don't know if you know Rich Fortis, used to be the guitar player in the Eyes in St.
Sure.
Louis.
Yeah.
My buddy, and he's been in Guns N' Roses forever. They had to cancel everything because like they only play stadiums. That's what they do.
Right.
Is they play stadiums.
So they're shut down.
They're shut down completely, and they were gearing up. He was, last I saw him was a couple months ago. He was in rehearsals gearing up for that, and he's like, I don't think it's going to happen. So I've heard that live shows may not happen again till next year, maybe even mid next year. So who knows? I'm just saying it's too early to tell. So it's nice to grab onto little projects where we can and make cool shit with cool people, however
Of course.
we can. You know.
Yeah. Well, it's good. I was happy to see and find out that you're trying to not reinvent, but you're certainly trying to get creative and flexible with whatever you can bring to the table that might interest someone who wants drum tracks, or even any of your folks in your musical circle, if they want other instrumentation as well. That's probably available too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I have a circle of. That's one of the beautiful things about being in LA is I have an opinion in LA of I'd say 95% of the people that say they're musicians in LA are awful and they're jive. But that other 5% are some of the best musicians in the world, the best, hands down. It's just a place where people tend to come to get famous and not good, like as opposed to when I go to like Nashville or Austin, Texas. Your average homeless guy is a master at his instrument, you know. So like people move to those towns to get good, not necessarily famous. So there's a lot of jive in LA, but at the same time, there's a lot of talent, and I've been lucky enough over the years to have relationships with a lot of these people and work with them occasionally. So but in my phone, I could call up. You know, I just had a conversation with the bass player of the Who the other day who wants to do something. John Button and Bob Glaub, who played bass on every 70s record. You know, he still plays with Jackson Browne. And so these are people that we've talked about doing stuff together in this method that we're doing now during this pandemic. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, this is awesome, Matt. I'm super duper stoked and psyched that you and I got to connect. It's been
Thanks,
like we were talking before when we first started, probably late 80s since we crossed paths back in St. Louis. You know, you went off, did your thing. I don't know where I was at the time. I think I might have been in school.
Like over 30 years ago. That's crazy. You look great.
Thank you. You look good too. I mean, I was like, I'm pretty sure based on everything I've seen on social media, I think Matt will look the way I think he looks, but you look fantastic. So
I mean, I filter the shit out of it, and today I'm playing with a planet in the background, but you do what you can, you know.
Hey man, God bless these filters, right?
I know.
And you know, I've got my little ocean moonlit scene behind me, which doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
So anyway, awesome to connect with you.
Behind is the planet that I'm sitting on right now. And behind me is the planet you're sitting on right now. So think about that.
Okay. That's trippy. You got me there. That is
Certain
trippy.
things blow my mind once I realize them. Like, here, I'll leave you with this.
Mind blown.
I'll leave you with
That's wild.
This who told me this was Scott Tunis, the great bass player from Zappa band, who I worked with for a little bit. He said, "The brain named itself." And I thought, holy shit. Like, that's deep to me anyway. The brain could have called itself anything, but it settled on the brain.
That's weird. Okay, I never heard that. I never thought of that, but that's pretty trippy.
Brain named itself. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I can't top that. So on that note, mtecu@hotmail.com.
Yes.
Matt, thank you for sharing a little bit about what you're doing, how you're getting by, what might be in store, and catching up. And I'm just happy to see you, happy to see that you're doing well and still doing what you're doing. It's fantastic.
Yeah, right on. Thanks, man.
Cool.
Thanks.
Well, don't be a stranger. I hope we can talk again soon, whenever that is. And if it's not,
I look forward to hearing the music you're making now. And so let's do that. Now we're friends again.
Right on. I mean? I'll make sure that happens. And
let's just keep doing it. That's the beautiful thing that can come out of a global viral pandemic is you expand your community.
That is absolutely true.
Like this. Yeah.
Absolutely true. Sounds like a plan, Matt. All right. Well, take care. Have a good rest of this year. If we don't talk again this year, whatever. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope you have great sessions.
Thanks, man. You too.
Bye, Matt. Take it easy.